Hello and warm welcome everyone on this webinar from Omdia. Today's topic of webinar is a cloud metro, a digital economy ready suite of advanced capabilities. This webinar is co-sponsored with our partner Juniper Networks, and I'm Samir Ashfaq Malik, Senior Principal Analyst and a Lead Consultant for Transport Network Routing and Switching from Omdia. Before we start the webinar formally and going into technical details, some housekeeping points that you have the console in front of you and there are a lot of widgets on the bottom of the screen. You can post questions and we will be happy to answer all the questions at the end of this webinar. You can also download the copy of this recorded version of webinar after the webinar, and then you can find out all the findings and all the answers for the questions. So a lot of widgets is a little bit of complex screen, but you can browse and then you can easily find it out easy for more functionalities. Last but not the least, please keep your console on the mute button so there will be no distraction due to in the webinar. Next, I would like to thank Ms. Irene Chung, who is Director of Product Marketing in Juniper Networks US, and she will be joining us as an expert who's going to talk about the cloud metro network and why it is sustainable, necessary for the business growth for the service providers. So before we start the cloud metro, from my side, being as an analyst from Omdia, but first I would like to throw a light that why we give this, the name cloud metro, a digital economy for advanced capabilities, why we need this cloud metro modernization. So as I talk with many service providers around the world and attending many conferences, what I found the missing part in the transport network is about the cloud network, cloud metro network, where we talk about how we can modernize the existing network and then get rid of the tedious manual operations where we don't have the intelligence. So most of the service providers, they are asking for modernizing their metro networks and get rid of the retro metro networks, because edge computing, cloud computing is becoming a new trend. And in the enterprise digitalization, and when we're moving towards industrial internet, or we call it industry 4.0, or maybe after 7-8 years in a metaverse world, there's a new chapter of internet, the metro network playing a major role. And modernization of metro network is the imperative step for going forward. So that's why that's the basic reason for doing this webinar and to talk and discuss with service providers and other industry partners that how we can do the modernization of metro networks, why we need metro network modernization, and what is the role of the cloud metro network. So that's the basic background of this webinar. First topic is about, I'm going to present about the demands for traditional retro metro network modernizations. So as we already know that, so there are different, challenges for the existing network. We need the agility, we need the service flexibility, and we know that with the edge computing, where all the service features and capabilities are going towards the edge for the low latency applications, a lot of traffic can be converged on the metro network. So service providers' biggest dream is to bring the agility, scalability, and efficiency in the digital transformation era. How we can scale the IP fabric, how we can scale the IP network for upcoming 5G or industrial internet, or maybe 9-10 years later, the metaverse area. That's the biggest challenge for the service provider at the moment. Though the edge compute and cloud computing is developing very fast, we already agree on this one, but all the traffic now converges to metro network. And then this metro becomes a new edge, or is a new experience center, where we cannot only go along with the best effort services, but we can assure the customer experiences and the high user experiences. So the question is how we can bring the intelligent network automation on the metro network, how we can do the intelligentization, prioritization of different services on the metro when the traffic is converged from the residential, enterprise, and the mobile domains onto the metro. So that metro is no more the specific ring network. They are not the traditional ring metro network where we can only aggregate the traffic from the access or edge all the way towards a data center network. So traffic steering is the biggest challenge, and how we can steer the traffic with the best service level agreements for the VIP users, for the enterprise users, where latency plays a major role. That's the biggest concern. So that's the challenge that we need to answer. Then the operational movements, how we can get rid of tedious, manual, or skilled labor operation and orchestration of the network or the traffic on the metro network. How we can move towards AI-enabled network that can intelligently orchestrate all the traffic from access all towards the data center. So metro again plays a major role, and that's one of the reasons we need to modernize the metro network. And then on top of it, last but not the least, the energy efficiencies, and then security threats. How we manage the security threats in the digital era, in the ICT era, or we can call it an industrial era. How we can secure our networks. That's the biggest challenge. How we can do the predictive maintenance, predictive security measures in coming all the traffic from the edge all towards the metro and then go to a data center. So that's what are the views being from my side and analysts, and when I'm talking with many service providers, that metro network modernization is very imperative for going towards next generation network. So that's one of the existing, challenging areas from the transport network. Then if we do the apple to apple comparison of the retro metro networks and the cloud metro network, and by the way, the cloud metro network is the new term, is a new name. We can also call it as a next generation network architecture for metro, or is a next generation metro architecture. And then we are not anymore depending on the ring-based metro network. We are more going towards a leaf spine, what we use, spine leaf or leaf spine, whatever you name it, and we used to use it in the data center architecture. So we need moving, if you can see from my left side of the screen, is operation side. We is more device centric to service experience centric operations. So we don't need hardware, manual, do it yourself operations, but we need intelligent orchestrating AI enabled automation of my traffic or the services that can give them a service providers an edge for time to market of the new services, enable enterprise, empower enterprise users on more control on the network. Then in the system level, traffic aggregation we are doing with a retro network or traditional metro, but in a cloud metro, we need a smart and intelligent, scalable, agile, and efficient aggregation of traffic, because my regional data centers and actually now located in the metro centers. They don't need to go back to core or towards the far ends, but after that, that's a next point of aggregation. This is not anymore a simple aggregation, but an intelligent aggregation. Then we talk about the monolithic power design. I already mentioned before that we need adaptable and green energy efficient power designs with automatic ventilators, less power usage, because the power is another scarce resource at the moment. So how the service providers need to optimize their power efficiencies and power resources for existing routing chassis, that's the biggest challenge. So Cloud Metro answers that one. Then we talk about the life cycle. Usually the metro network for existing metro network or retro, the time span is 3 to 5, even 7 years. But how we can do the scalable cloud metro, so that the theme is pay as you grow. So you can enlarge, you can scale the network depending on your users' capacity. And that's what actually helps the service providers to optimize their total cost of ownership. That's very important, because cost per bit analysis is the key in cloud metro. And then we talk about from architecture point of view, the scale up. We are doing in a retro metro network or traditional metro network, but in a cloud metro or the next generation metro network, we are doing the scale out and the scale up methods to modernize our existing cloud metro. Before we only talk about the silo networks in existing metro, like the residential metro, mobile metro, and then the enterprise metro. But in coming era, we are more focused on the converged network. We call it fixed mobile convergence. We call it a fixed mobile converged metro for high user experience. That's the new philosophy of the next generation cloud metro network. So that's very important, because your experience actually converge on metro. Though the edge is very important for low latency, but they're throwing a lot of traffic burst on the metro. So metro should be smart enough to manage everything. From the security perspective, as I mentioned before, that we don't need security when we really something happen in a network. We really need a predictive security measures. We need we have to preempt the security threats before anything can happen in the network, because metro is converging the experience of traffic from different sources. So built-in zero trust security trusted architecture and with the AI-enabled automation is a way forward for the cloud metro. So this slide, I mean, give you an idea. This showing you that why we need cloud metro and what is wrong with existing metro network. Because I know that I talked with a couple of customers, they said we don't need to move towards cloud metro because retro metro networks are good enough to converge. But most of the CSPs now believe that metro network modernization is very important. And these are some of the compelling reasons of moving towards a cloud metro network. So this is just the first part for my part of session, this short webinar, that why we need cloud metro and how cloud metro can help to enable sustainable business growth for service providers. And then we are more than happy to answer your question at the end of this webinar. But before we going towards the next session, I would request Irene to talk about the cloud metro. There is a poll question here. What are the primary business drivers to modernize your metro network? So you can click and you can choose answers from a list of items, and then we can see the result. Number one is increased network reliability and resilience. That's, you think, is one of the major reason. Or we're meeting traffic growth requirements that we're already talking about for many years. Or we want to talk meeting edge cloud requirements, lower TCO for total cost of ownership, or other reasons. Or maybe we can say is all of them. You can click all of them because it's not only the radio buttons, but you can select all of them. So, I mean, that's one of the way of using a more interactive way and getting your opinion as well for metro network modernization. So you have like 10-15 seconds to read out the question and then please answer, and then we can share the results. Okay, so I think you already answered that one. So moving towards the next part. So these are the results. It's automatically populated all the fields. So you can see from here, like 83.3%, or we call it 84% people, they believe is not only the one compelling reason, but network reliability, resiliency, edge cloud requirements because of the low latency, high traffic growth, and total cost of ownership. There's a biggest reason for modernizing your existing metro network. And that's what I was expecting out of you guys to answer all of them. Because some people believe there's only the traffic is the only issue that we need a modernization for metro network. But that's not the basic answer. The answer is that edge cloud, that's the biggest driver for modernization. Then network reliability and resilience is the second part. So that's a good survey answer from you guys, and happy to answer on more and talk more at the end of this session. Now I would like to invite Irene Chung, who is from Juniper Networks US, and she's going to talk about her experience and expertise on the Juniper Cloud Metro solution and what Juniper is looking forward to modernize service providers' cloud metro network. So over to Irene.
Thank you, Samir. So before we jump right into talking about Juniper's solution innovation, I want to echo what Samir have talked about the market trend, because from Juniper perspective, we absolutely agree that is where the market is happening and transitioning. So someone asked, what is the simple way to think about metro? So metro essentially is the traditional network domain, where is the access and aggregation domain before you hit the multi-service edge and core. And in some terms, you may also reference it as the middle mile. Now, when we look at the network architecture, the traffic patterns, it is changing, and we see that as the new edge. This is where the connectivity, edge cloud hosting, and service experience converge. So if we look at the left diagram, where traditionally the traffic pattern is very much the north-south, where you have the user-generated traffic, and then the metro is pretty much a dump pipe that aggregated traffic, and then get it to the multi-service edge, to the core, to the cloud. And it's pretty much like a vertical direction. And as the workload, the applications moving more and more toward the new edge, because of the benefit of edge computing, it comes much closer to the users. And so if you look at the diagram in the middle here, right, where a lot more distributed cloud are deployed in the metropolitan areas. So the traffic pattern is no longer just north and south, but also a lot of the east-west traffic. And with that, that would impact the underlying transport network, how it should be architected, how it should be managed, and how it should be secure, frankly. So as we look at that and also look at the numbers, right? The edge computing is growing very quickly from about 10 or 15 billion to about 500 billion in 2030, which is an incredible CAGR. And for some of you who are a little bit more familiar with edge computing, you may ask, what is the connection between edge computing and metro network? Well, you can do edge computing in a lot of different locations. You can do on-prem, you can do it really from anywhere from the on-premises all the way to the cloud, anywhere in between. You can deploy edge computing. However, if you are from the operating side, where you have a lot of great assets, the pre-aggregation, aggregation, central office facilities, in the middle, where in the metropolitan areas, networks that have the advantage of being a lot of those facilities, and the distance is close enough so that it still get the benefit of the low latency, benefit of edge computing, but at the same time have lots of facility that you can do resource pooling, which will make the business case, which is why the metro area becomes a really popular choice for where the distributed edge cloud are deployed. So with that, then you see the traffic is actually anticipated to grow from 2021 to 2027 fivefold. That is 500% increase. That is pretty crazy. And also to also validate the data traffic, right? Gartner forecasts that more than 50% of the enterprise data will be distributed in edge cloud. So those are the reasons why Metro becomes a new strategic priority for Juniper and frankly, for the industry, for everyone to really see it and take advantage of this transformation. So we talk about there's a huge opportunity in Metro, and Samir talked about retro Metro. It's nothing necessarily wrong with it, except that with this huge potential with the retro Metro, where it was typically a little bit just like a very strict to optimize for the north-south traffic pattern, is no longer as suitable to support and drive the sustainable business growth to capitalize on those trends. And when we talk about sustainable business growth or sustainability, we need to look at it holistically. And so we can look at it from a 3P framework, the profit, people, and planet. So profit is relatively easy to understand, where if the bandwidth is going to get fivefold, 500% growth, but then chances are most operators' budgets are not going to increase that much, if increase anything. Second, user expectation will only increase. And we all know that if the quality is not that great, we just change. Last but not least, with 5G, the attack surface actually increase. The expanded security threat as more and more data getting distributed and open up. So before, there's not much threat because there's not much data to steal at the metro, and now there is. And so that means you need to actually increase the investment at those facilities to protect the distributed device, data, and user. In addition to profit, what about people? So if we look at some of the recent data point and even just look at news headlines, 86% telecom executive named skilled staff shortage as the #1 industry challenge. And when you think about what does that mean and look at the day-to-day operations, usually the really skilled, really experienced staff, those are the ones that really hard to keep. And as more workload getting to them, we talk about the bandwidth growth, the device growth, it's going to be more work. How to keep the people when the work-life balance is not maintained. Also, as people retired and there's not enough transfer, it's going to have a big skill gap. So it's very important to transition from manual operations to more automation assisted by AI ops. Last but not least, nowadays, especially this year, that some of you probably have seen that the importance of ESG, the importance of green networking, the importance of the carbon commitment. So there's a new ITU standard that require all the ITU vendors, whether it's operators, the service providers, or data center operators, to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 45% from 2020 to 2030. And GSMA have a similar mandate about net zero carbon emission by 2050. So if you look at how can you accomplish that if you're an operator, right? Of course, you need to use renewable energy, but if you look at scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, majority of the carbon emission are actually from the upstream and downstream, which means that when you choose technology vendors, it's even more important to make sure those products and solutions, hardware and software, are very much optimized for energy and safe efficiency. And also, instead of rip and replace, how to ensure that those products, those hardware, especially hardware actually, the longevity of it, so that you can reduce the e-waste. So all in all, make the case that a new approach is needed. And what we believe that new approach is Cloud Metro. And just as Samir said, that is a very dramatic contrast to Retro Metro.
You can continue everything.
Yes, I have a little technical problem to push the slide.
So now you can see which slide in 2021 Juniper announced.
Yes, I don't see that one on my screen, but if that's it, that's great. All right, so in 2021, it doesn't show on my screen, but that's okay. In 2021, Juniper, as the pioneer in Cloud Metro, announced our first set of solutions to go to market. And we are very proud to have that as the first vendor to come to market. And even more proud this year to introduce an expanded suite of innovation where we have a significant expanded portfolio. So on the operations, that in addition to the Paragon on-premise version, we have make it even more powerful with AI-enabled and SaaS delivered. Samir, can you double check with me that are we talking about the portfolio size? Okay, now it moves. Thank you.
So you can see the equipment, right?
Yes, now I can. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Let's continue.
There's a system glitch.
Yes, that's delayed. And then on the system side, the A6 7K family. So in addition to the A6 7100, the 2 version, we now have another 4 platform adding to the family. So it's a full complete portfolio all the way from access, pre-aggregation to aggregation, anywhere in between, any performance, any customer need, this portfolio would cover that. And also, we introduced the Juniper 400 gig ZIA and ZIA Plus optics. So it really helps to boost the performance and address the incredible traffic bandwidth increase. Last but not least, on the sustainable architecture, in addition to introduce the IP services fabric, where, as Samir mentioned, that we have the leverage the data center design, the leaf and spine designed, and EVPN, SRv6, those protocol support to allow customers to do not only scale up, but also scale out, and also able to use network slicing to address multiple different use cases from 5G and from industrial IoT, Industry 4.0, etc. And then on top of that, we add 2 new capabilities into the architecture where we have embedded the active assurance and built-in zero trust security. In the next couple of slides, I will elaborate a little bit more about what exactly the new innovation of each products. Okay. So first, on the Paragon Automation as a Service, this is the industry first service provider level automation that is cloud delivered. And we are extremely proud of bringing it to market. There's twofold. One is the cloud deliver. So how this is in contrast is contrasting the DIY approach, where instead of spending months and months of doing it yourself, duplicate effort, and trying to boil the ocean to try everything and then get frustrated, that slow adoption and costly, why not use the innovation that have the automation delivered from the cloud, where you get instant outcome, and also instead of boil the ocean, why not have that adopt as a use case approach, where you can try from which use case that are most critical or which use case that are low-hanging fruit, depending on what you want, that you can try and adopt it, and that will have an easier success for full adoption. On AI enable, so this is where we learn and get expertise from our Miss AI. And with the AI, it's about how to detect the issues which humans may miss, and how do you identify the alarms that matter instead of catching the noises all the time, and how do you diagnose the root cause and fix issues before customers complain. And the outcomes speak for itself, that we are able to reduce the deployment time by more than 50% and able to have the new use case deployment 70% faster. And also, everybody loves it, the 40% cost reduction. For Juniper, the first use case that we go to market is going to be the AI-enabled device onboarding as a service. So this one, as we hear from customers and also look at the market, there's a misconception where people may conceive the onboarding as equals to ZTP. And frankly, every vendor can do ZTP. But the issue that when we look at the survey and talk to customer, it still takes incredibly long, sometimes hours, sometimes half day to complete the onboarding for a customer side. Why? The why is because it's way more than just ZTP. There's the trust score that you need to evaluate. There's the image upgrade. There's the device health score. There's the link provision. There's the assurance test, and also update the inventory. There's different workflow different steps that include in the workflow. And reality is that most vendors' solutions don't consider all of them, and maybe just one part of it. And so it end up either using different systems and also a lot of manual efforts still included in the process, which is why it still takes so long to complete the onboarding. Imagine that if all of those tasks are actually fully automated and done in minutes, how would that look like and transform? And that is exactly why when we do the survey, that it was voted as the #1 primary use case for service providers to consider for the SaaS automation. That is because it is a pain point, and also onboarding is the first step for any customer experience. Next, on the system side, we are extremely proud the A67K platform and family is future-proof performance. When we look at the entire family, it has the industry highest portfolio scale, anywhere from 1 gig to 345 terabit. Just sit for a moment to think about how big that range is. Of course, that is where that is pay as you grow. You don't have to have 345 terabits on day one. But the future proof is when you need, you can always turn it to that level. And to enable such high performance, one of the innovations that we, together with this system, is we have the industry fastest line card today compared to any routers in the industry. That is at 21.6 terabits, and that is with 54 ports of 400 gig enable, and it's totally ready for 800 gig and 1.6T when it's available in the future, when the industry get to the standard. And some of you may think that performance equals how many ports and how many chips that you can fit. But something to also consider as we work with engineering and manufacturing, something that we are at a point where it's no longer just the physical, having the boxes or having the slot size, but it's also about the balance and also the thermal balance, that when you run the optics, it gets really hot. And so how do you make sure that the cooling is in place and effective so that it doesn't happen? And it's true story where some products in the market today, that when you try to turn on multiple of those optics, that it can burn down. It can just becomes too hot. So that is something to consider. And so when we talk about sustainability and sustainable, those are all the things that we commit. And it's about how to effectively use less components, how to effectively design the thermal and cooling so that it doesn't consume as much energy, and also while at the same time bring more performance. So those are the balance that we are very proud that our product team, our engineering team are able to bring to the market. The other aspect to think about sustainability is the port flexibility and density. You probably have experience where that you don't need as like 400 gig on day one. You may have 1 gig, 10 gig, 25, 40, however the bandwidth you need. But then as you need the next step to grow, that is a pain if your existing vendor just tell you, hey, we don't support that. You have to change to another box. And those could be a huge waste. What if that it actually have a lot more flexibility about different port speed so that you can use pretty much the same appliance for much longer lifetime to tailor to the bandwidth need that when you need it. So that is another way to consider how to reduce the e-waste. The port density we talk about, the cooling we talk about, the highest timing precision accuracy, that is Class D verified. So if this is extremely important for 5G, where some of the applications are extremely sensitive to latency. So in some case, the Class B or Class C are just not enough. And with the A67000, we're able to accomplish the Class D with the testing with EANTC. The adaptive power innovation, if you look at the picture, where in the middle, there's the chassis one. And so for those of you that are familiar with chassis, actually is another pain point that we've been keep hearing, where as you need more performance, you draw more power. And the power shelf usually are fixed to the chassis, which means every time you upgrade, that you might need more power draw. And because it's fixed, then you might have to just end up using a new chassis. Why not have the power shelf and the chassis, that the rest actually decouple, where the power shelf can be removed, but the rest, you can still reuse it until you really need a new box. But in this case, that way you can, again, reduce the e-waste and have the much system longer lifetime. And that is one of the way that we can accomplish with not only just 3 to 5 year rip and replace, but actually get to 7 to even 12 years. And that is accomplished through the power chassis, the power shelf decoupled design, as well as the cooling effect, where it can accommodate multiple generation of chipset innovation, so that it's not just Jericho 2 and then Jericho 3, you need a new appliance, but instead it can accommodate Jericho 3 and even Jericho 4. And then another thing that we accomplished, very proud, is the titanium grade. That is a measure for power efficiency. This is the one that we believe we are the first one that accomplished that, compared to bronze, compared to platinum. So as you get how much power you draw in and convert, there's always a loss. But then if you only get to 80-something% or 90% or 96%, that is a huge difference in terms of the power efficiency. So the titanium grade is the highest one. That is, you get the most efficiency. Pretty much there's not much loss from the power grid that you draw to how you consume. And also on the software side, we are also able to, with the Juno's command, you can automatically turn off any unused packet forwarding engines and software functions. So just like if you think about smart homes, where the smart thermometers that can help you automatically turn off the lightings and any electronics that you don't use, that allow you to save power and reduce your utility bill. That is what we are trying to do with this new design and the ability to automatically turn off those functions when you're not using it. So The numbers, again, speak itself. The 61 to 77% lower power consumption, lower TCO, much longer system lifetime. It's not just a couple months or a year or two. It's 4 to 7 years. And that is, in a normal cycle, that's completely a new cycle of purchasing. So that is a huge saving right there. On the architecture side, we have embedded active assurance. What do we mean by that? There's two words that is very important. One is active assurance. So that is different than passive assurance, where you use only the probes and telemetry to monitor and infer the quality after the fact. Active assurance means that you are always actively monitoring the user experience and able to assure them if they have something going wrong. And how we do it is by simulating the user traffic as if it's like a real traffic. So that's how we detect. And then the innovation that we are having in here embedded means that instead of having, you need to have another appliance to run the agent. Now all the test agents are embedded into the Junos Evo in the operating system that is available in all the A67K family. So that means that you don't need separate appliances, or it's embedded. And when you have the A67K platforms, there is right available. All you need is you can choose to turn on the capability or not, but that is totally your choice. And that allows you to have the active testing and service assurance from day one. It simplifies the deployment. And as I said, there's no need for extra appliance. Another point that is very relevant for the 5G use cases, where it has the ability to run the emulate the 5G UE and Geno B. So that allows operators to measure the 5G data plane from UE through 5G core all the way end to end. So when you think about network slicing, for network slicing, multi-tenancy is important, but it's equally, if not more important, is make sure how the different slices able to meet expected SLAs when there are different use cases, and different use cases have different SLA with different matrix. So that is extremely important. The result, we are able to reduce the incident resolution time by half, and also increase customer satisfaction by 30%. Last but not least, on the zero trust security. So zero trust is essentially the principles that never trust by default, always verified, always validate. So it has become a best practices for implementing security. And there may be some perception where zero trust only applicable to enterprise, or maybe zero trust only equal CTNA, but that is not true. What we believe at Juniper is that the zero trust as a security principle should be applied across all network infrastructure. And that is how you can fully get the organization, the infrastructure really secure. And how we do it is that we have embedded unique device identity to every device. So we leverage a chipset called TPM 2.0, which is cryptographically bound to each device. So device identity cannot be spoofed by hackers. And on top of it, we are able to enable operators to do both hardware and software attestation, so that during the secure boot, you can verify the device authenticity and integrity. And also with that, then you can do the RFC compliant secure ZTP or SCTP. And then soon we will also have a specific software interface where you can measure the trust score based on all the devices in the network, their security posture, so that you can get a better sense of overall whether there is something you should concern or whether it's something that you need to enhance the security posture there. Last but not least, security is about securing device, and also secure the data. So we protect data at rest with file encryption. So even though some of the devices might be sitting in the metro areas where there's no people actually physically monitoring the device as on site, unlike data centers, which means that some people might be able to actually get in touch with those boxes. But with file encryption, you can't really get anything out of it because it's fully encrypted. And then for data in transit, we have enabled MACsec on all ports. So, and that is something that should not be underestimated because the devils are in the details, where when you compare different offerings, make sure it's not just a couple ports, but actually all ports. All right. Okay, my last slide is at Juniper, we believe that Cloud Metro is really key to enable sustainable business growth. We talk about the 3 Ps where it have good positive impact to all the 3 areas: profit, people, and planet. And with this year, the innovations that we have innovation across sustainable operations, systems, and architectures. And to Samia's point, it's definitely a new solution categories. And we believe as the pioneer in Cloud Metro, Juniper have a full portfolio that can deliver comprehensively for anyone who's interested in adopting Cloud Metro. With that, I'll hand it over back to you, Samir.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you very much for your presentation. Though it's very comprehensive and very detailed one. We'll try to explain the Cloud Metro and the Juniper's expertise on this one. So now another poll question for the audience: that are you planning to apply cloud principle to modernize your metro network? Yes, no, or not sure, or maybe. So we have 10-15 seconds, then we can wrap up the session. Okay, so we can see the poll results. It's not showing anything, or we can go, or you. Now is the time again, then I can see the poll result. I think it's not showing up in the next slide. So the answer is yes, 50% and 50% maybe. So that's the most interesting part to see that why people think is still maybe, because maybe many other concerns that they're not sure how to do it and why to do it. That was my understanding. That's why half of the people, half the audience actually chosen that maybe they're not sure at the moment. But half said yes, they need to modernize the metro networks. So the conclusion of this webinar from my side, after hearing the very detailed session from Irene and the Juniper understanding on the Cloud Metro, somebody already asked the question in the chat window that what is a simple and a standardized definition for metro? So I think this is the conclusion, and that answers well your question that Cloud Metro is the new edge, or will be the new edge in the industrial internet or digital transformation era. And why it is? Because for low latency, high traffic convergence, and for better user experiences. This is very difficult to explain a simple and standardized definition for Cloud Metro, because it's not like one term. Cloud Metro actually stands on the pillar of security, for intelligence and automation, higher capacity routing structures, leaf spine or spine leaf, network topology, and then of course the AI enablement on top of it. So these are some of the features that actually defines how the Cloud Metro can, or the next generation metro architecture will form the basic part of the new transport network architecture. That's why I just summarized a couple of points here. You can maybe you agree to some of them, or maybe you have different opinion on some other as well. But the most important underlying story is to get guaranteed user experience for your business and enterprise users. For sure consumers, but for enterprise is the most important. And to get that guaranteed level agreement in that particular digital transformation era where the traffic is boosting and bumping a lot, in that scenario, you need a highly scalable, large capacity or port density routing infrastructure in the metro that can work as a new edge or new experience center for your all upcoming traffic. So that's a simple and standardized definition from my side. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And that was the conclusion of this webinar as well. So on concluding this one, I think I would go for question and answers. You are feel free to ask questions and write the question in the question answer widget on your screen or console, and we will be happy to answer that one. So for that one, the few questions comes on my screen now. One is I already answered that. What is a simple and standardized definition of metro? There is another question, Irene, that I think you want to answer on that one. How does the Cloud Metro serve or emerging evolve edge 5G customer need or market dimensions?
Absolutely. So first, we talk about cloud metro as the new edge, right? Where the applications are moving to metro, and so 5G edge, where the 5G, whether it's O-RAN or 5G core, a lot of applications are moving exactly to those locations. And cloud metro is because those demands that are transforming to address that. And specifically on an architectural standpoint, where as the applications, the 5G applications are pretty much running in the distributed edge cloud, the underlying transport architecture to transform with the spine leaf architecture would be much suited to address that. And in addition, as I mentioned, having the embedded active assurance, the ability to do the 5G service assurance, the ability to monitor and assure the 5G user traffic anywhere from L2 to L7, from 5G UE all the way to 5G core end to end, so that every network slice there is fully compliant and meet the SLA expectation. Those are the ways that cloud metro can serve those needs for 5G applications. Oh, and last but not least, is whether it's the architecture, whether it's the systems, it needs to support network slicing, and that is another thing that cloud metro are supporting, and that is also one of the requirements for 5G.
Okay, thanks, Irene. Another question, and I would like to get your expertise or Juniper's opinion that what is your recommendation to service providers in best utilizing the cloud metro or the next generation metro architecture?
Yeah, so I think that, so while we say that cloud metro is very different than retro metro, right? But we all know that transformation doesn't happen on just day one, and it's always a transition journey. So our recommendation is actually to start the way we segment it, where there's the system level, there's architecture level, and there's operations level. So on the operations level first, that is choose, instead of trying to the automation to everything, every use case, first start small, find a use case that are most relevant, and you start experimenting it and feel comfortable with that, right? And then as you have success in that use case, and then you roll out to other use cases. So that kind of use case approach will be a lot more, have a more highly chance to succeed for adoption. On the system side, that is more practical. That is more when you're having locations where, frankly, not every locations are equal. That when you have locations where they have higher bandwidth, then try to experiment. Having it, when you modernize it, having systems that are future-proof, that already have the sustainability benefit built into it, instead of just trying same old, because you are comfortable with what you previously are using. On the architecture side, when you're at a point where you have projects that are specifically modernization, that you get to redesign the architecture, then instead of, and it's not either or, right? It's not just complete either ring or spine leaf. Is how do you have an architecture that actually allow the both and the hybrid, right? And it's just, when we think about architecture, is how do you bring those spine leaf like principles into the design? Again, is having that consider the transition from what you are today to cloud metro, and choose vendors that actually allow you to do the both and approach.
Okay, thank you, Irene, on answering this in a detailed way. And there's another question I've seen in the chat window, and I think I would like to answer this one, that what is a digital economy trend and ICT marketing trend, including Hong Kong? So as being an analyst, and I'm monitoring and tracking all the market for the IP routing and switching, I would like to answer in a way that digital economy trend, or the biggest ICT trend in coming next 5 years, will be the industrial internet, or industry 4.0. Most of the enterprise, they want to leverage the 5G capabilities, especially the standalone architecture, or with the upcoming release 18 or 19 for 5G advanced. So considering that one, they want to utilize and leverage the massive MIMO, massive spectrum for industrial internet. So private 5Gs will be more and more. But on top of it, how they can integrate or orchestrate with different WAN networks, or you can call it transport network. There you can go that the modernization of the metro network is actually the basic for the success, number one. So digital economy, for sure everybody talks about it, but digital economy means that enterprises now having a strong vision of moving towards the cloud. So B2B, business to business, or business to business to consumer will be the next step. That's one thing. Industrial Internet 4.0, or we talk about the industrial Internet of Things, where the man-machine automation will be a key capability in industrial era. And then on top of it, last but not the least, the metaverse, where everybody's talking about the metaverse for digital twins, and then narrowing the gap between the real and the artificial augmentation. That's the biggest one. But I can see as an analyst and watching the industry that metaverse can be happen like after 7-8 years, but we need to be ready from the transport network perspective to cater all the demands of this strong digital economy trend. Because everything will be moving towards metaverse. And when it considered as a new chapter of network and internet, in that scenario, your metro network should be very strong. Now, maybe the question comes in your mind, why not the edge network? So in the future, edge and metro, in my understanding, become converged as a cloud metro or as a next generation metro. And no matter whatever the name you can give it, but the traffic can be converged. So metro network is no more the simple ring or the manually operated network, but it should be intelligent, automated, and leaf spine sort of structure that can do the same job what the data centers are doing for many years or even today. So metro network modernization should be very important for ensuring the high level user experiences. This is what I'm trying to foresee for the next coming 7-8 years. And then you have your own right to agree or disagree on this one. So these are some of the questions that pop up in the window. A couple of more, but I think we already answered all of them. So I would like to thank everyone for joining this webinar and taking your time out to listen about the Cloud Metro. I would like to thank Ms. Irene Chung, who actually from US is a very late time there, and she actually shared her experience and Juniper expertise on the Cloud Metro, and become the panelist for this webinar. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining all of us on this session. And you can feel free to download the recorded version of the Cloud Metro and the slide deck, the PDF, after this session. And if you have any question, you can find my email address, samir.malik@omdia.com, or Irene mentioned at the bottom. So, and then we are happy to answer your questions. So once again, thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you.